jump. Yenji, 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 Jawa, Nanga, Aranta, Harriet Flinders, but my single name was Harriet Parry. I'm from the Chunganji clan. There were 9 clans from Janey to Curran Point.
Mapoon is the accepted site of first contact between Europeans and Indigenous Australians.
They used to dance, the old people paint themselves up down the beach side,
Yes, they'd be dancing and singing half of the night.
Where I am now, where I'm staying, is an old dancing ground, just far from me. That's where the old people used to come and dance in the night, do their crobberies.
The mornings and afternoons, hunting and gathering, chilling beside the campsite, during the hot part of the day.
The old people used to come here and sit under the shade while the women used to gather firewood. Old men used to walk in the swamp and spear, fish for the barrels.
My grandfather came here before any settlement was here. Him and me, eldest uncle. Where they came from was from Mobiok Island. They were working shark oil, dugong oil and copra from coconut, and they looked for another place to plant more coconuts for copra. So they found Mapoon. They sailed down the coast and found Mapoon.
Ironwood tree contains the scar from a Mindy cut, which is a spear thrower.
That's called cotton tree. Cut the tree down right at the bottom. We take that to build a canoe.
We had a canoe, our own canoe down there, a big one. We used to just go out and paddle outside there, go for a ride in it. But there was a lot around here, wooden one, bark ones. They used it at the swamps.
And everything was, in the humpy, but up on, not on the ground. And it was kept spotless right around.
These 6 boulders represent the 6 main tribes of Mapoon during the mission era. So it's the Tepatigi people, Chunganji people, Bakwithi people, Yupangati people, Warranku people, and Thanikwith people. They were all people who came in to join with the Chunganji people here under the Presbyterian mission during the period 1891 to 1964.
Come towards Mapoon. First thing you see, the coconut tree swaying very high.
It was the first mission in Queensland, 1891. It was set up for the benefit, I suppose, of half-caste women.
There were 9 clans that would come out from the traditional country land to stay here and make a big mission here down in Mapoon, and that was a big mother mission.
Well, everyone was brought from different places to here. Even Pennyfather, you get Batavia up there, across the river, Namalita, and all those areas. They all was brought to Mapoon. And they grew up like one.
And in the mission times, I went to school here in Old Mapoon, had lovely teachers.
Before we go to school, we go to church in the morning. We have service in the morning, have missionaries. Before we go to church first, we have to rake all the leaves and what around the trees that grows there in the mission. Then the bell rings, we go to church. After church, then we march to school. And we had a very long way to walk to school every day. We left home before the sun came up, so we'd be in time for church.
If you were missing from church, the old priest used to pull you up next day when you go to school.
The place was called Mapoon Mission. If you had a plane and you flew over the top of the mission, you'd see written on the where the missionaries lived, it had Mapoon Mission on top to let the pilots know up the top that they were in the right community. This is where the old school used to be, where I went to school, and over there was the cottage.
My grandmother, she's from the stolen generation. She came from Burketown when she was a little girl.
My grandfather was brought in by the missionaries to Mapoon from Pine River, and he had a family here.
My grandmother was brought here as a statistic, I suppose, of the stolen generation in 1905, about 8 years old.
She only spoke language and they brought her into the dormitory, but she soon learned English.
Because the missionary, what when in their time, they said you can't learn your language.
They stopped us from talking our language. And, it's sad.
My dad's dad, he came from the island of Maleta in Solomon Islands to teach people how to do gardening and grow things.
I came here as a 1-year-old with my parents. Dad was a missionary superintendent, so it was an old Mapoon mission which started in 1891, so we were here in 1948. They were called Boss, was the typical name for the missionary. It was the doctor, the dentist, the supervisor of justice and all sorts of things.
And we never had a toothbrush or toothpaste. The old people used to say to us, if you want to clean your teeth, charcoal. And we used to get the charcoal, crush it up and rub it.
My grandmother's mum and her brother, they all lived in the old mission site here down at Mission House.
Locked in. And there was smoke under the house, and he raced in and got the keys and said, run. And they run there to the dormitory and let the lock out. By then we were all just behind the door.
We had no hospitals, only a dispensary. And most women went up to Thursday Island to have their babies. If a lady was ready to have her baby, the boat wasn't here to take them up to Thursday Island. Well, it was only natural that they were born at home.
There was two boats, there was Janet Thompson and Reliance. They brought all the main stores.
Every child got one each scoop of flour. If you got 4 or 5 children, they put 4. Sugar, rice, tea leaf, baking powder.
With the old men coming from Solomon's and that, they brought in the planting things like corn, carrot, beans, tomatoes. So we had vegetables.
Everyone had a well, no electricity, there was fires going at night time and you used fire for cooking.
Teach them how to hunt, and that's why they sent them out to hunt.
Just go down, throw your line, catch a fish, or walk in the swamp and get a feed a pig or something. There's ducks and geese.
While we lived in the mission, we was free to go hunting and collecting shells.
Didn't even know what shoes were.
And in the night, on a calm, dark night, we used to walk along with a lamp, Bington lamp, with a spear. You see the fish come around the lamp, and we just spear them.
Well, my dad being a stockman, they built the fence lines. They had to build bridges to get stock across. They had to be, jack of all trades.
There were still people living at Mapoon, about 70-odd people. Gradually they moved away to Weipa and to New Mapoon, and the last people left in May 1964.
Because the government never even tell us that, like, what reason they're shifting us.
They took us away. There's a lot of things that not here today.
My mum was taken from here when she was about 6 years old.
Just before I turned 11, that's when the mission, they closed the mission down.
But when they went there, they didn't find their homes, no homes. They told them lies.
They came in the night, they took us early. Okay. The Reliance was the mission boat. They came, took us to Thursday Island. And when we got to Thursday Island, boat took us from there to Cairns, and we caught a train from there to Palm Island.
She said, and I didn't worry about whether they sent me to Palm Island or not. She said, as long as I spoke for my rights.
After burning of Mapoon, my mum and dad moved my older brother and sisters up to Bamiga, where they used to call it the Hidden Valley. And only 2 families moved up there. It was Milton Brown, his family, and my mum and dad.
I think the dancing and stuff pretty much got stolen with the people and when they got taken away from here.
And my mother and father, they died in Cairns. And when I came back here, it is so sad to say, Mapoon is not the same.
The Mapoon people were sent to the many different places in North Queensland, very sadly, and some of them never got back to their home community. In the years after that, there were some brave people who stood up against the Queensland government to tell the story so that they'd get more support from people in the south. A lady called Jean Jimmy and her husband Gilbert, a tiny little lady but very strong in spirit and courage. And Jerry and Ina Hudson, who were at that stage the cattle managers at Arakoon but had grown up here, they all came back, and other families like Norman and Jessie Wheeler, they all came back up to settle little bush camps and re-established Mapoon starting in about September of 1974.
People were coming back. There was about 120 odd people here. There was excitement and they just, started putting up humpies and shacks on old traditional and historical grounds.
And then by the mid-1990s, both the state and the Commonwealth started to spend some serious money in establishing a school and the health clinic and power reticulation, power station, and everything has grown since then back to the very active and lively community it is today.
We lived in an open shed, no electricity, no laid-on water.
The bush supermarket was things that you got to eat on a daily basis because we didn't have fridges, we didn't have electricity, we didn't know what electricity was. We wanted something for tea, well we'd go down, chuck a line and have fish. But my dad was head stock and he used to also be the butcher.
Dad actually lived here and worked in Mapoon, and he actually, during the war, he was in some sort of a corps and worked in the wartime, building constructions and houses.
We had a lantern for light at night, open fireplace, which was good.
After breakfast, we would go on with spears and stuff. Went crabbing, for stingrays and stuff like that.
No earaches, no toothaches. We had no cavities in our teeth until the dentist came along and put them there. Because we had no lollies to eat, no rubbish like they have these days. No fridges, everything was fresh. And you only got what you need for the day. If we went fishing, we only caught enough fish for a meal.
And he thought that it would be a good area to run cattle because you've got water all year round at the floating islands there. In the physical sense, you've got 3 islands that float called Dushalingir. That's a language name for it.
Wild yams and wild fruits that we never starve. Mapoon is very rich with everything, if everybody knows.
Mapoon is something like you live in paradise. You got what you want in the water, sea, you get there. You want to go inland, everything is there. So what we do, we just live off the land.
We grew up eating crabs and fish and oysters and periwinkles. And we had season for all the different things. We knew when the sea turtle was fat by the wattle, and when it was right to go to the swamp to get what we call panja.
I was also taught how to find rindi, that's freshwater long-necked turtle. A lot of traditional medicine, bush foods. That knowledge was passed down to me, and now I'm passed it to my children, and today I'm passing it still on to my grandchildren.
I can remember one year when the mission ran out of food, everyone went out camping, and we went with our grandma.
We never had no flour, but we had wild arrowroot.
Little bulb, about so big, and she grated it. I think she did it on a wattle bark, and she grated that. She put in a bucket of water, stirred it all up, because it's poisonous. And then when it settled, she tipped that water out and put some more water in, and she stirred it all up again. And she used to taste it each time to see if it's still bitter. When she couldn't taste it bitter, then she'd roll it up in a ball and make a little fire with a lot of coals on it. And then she'd cook it on the open fire.
The panjas are not getting bigger. They're reducing now because of the pigs' population. The panja is the food source of the magpie geese. And magpie geese eat those things, but pigs are just digging up everywhere.
They're ruining the place, yeah. But you see, you can't poison pigs here. You only can shoot them.
The choppers come and they actually shoot the pigs and that, yeah. That's one way that we've done. With the horses here, I know the horses are a bit too much in the community, but majority of the people here love their horses.
Half the community think the horses are good and not doing any damage, and the other half know that there are too many and they are doing damage to swamps and country.
They're just trampling everything, being large animals. Yep, they do tear up the country just as bad as pigs.
Oh, they do a lot of damage.
People had horses here during the church time. Old people used to go out and muster cattle way outside, round Normanton, round Chiligo, all them places.
The numbers need to be maintained a bit so it doesn't get out of hand by culling them.
Unemployment here is the biggest problem. We want our children to be involved, do business for themselves, open a fish and tackle shop, taking the tourists out. As for four-wheel drives, they also damaging a lot of environment places that they shouldn't be driving on beaches, going to sacred areas where they shouldn't be, story places, hunters, even for trawlers. But we weren't allowed to do fishing or cracking oysters or taking anything from Dog Reef because it was our cultural law that we can't do them things, laid down from generation to generation until today. We are not allowed to take anything from that area. My point of view as a cultural heritage ranger, I would just like to say respect the land and respect our story places and our sacred area because they're a big part of us.
Sometimes it can be pretty severe. April this year, a big lot of damage was done down to Cullen Point.
I really think I don't mind the tourism and stuff up this end, just as long as they abide by the rules and stuff that the rangers, not only rangers but elders and council put out.
People that go in there and they just damage the place, and because it's not their country, yes, I'm against that. And I reckon that, you've got to set guidelines.
We don't want people to just come and just take indiscriminately.
We want to manage our turtles, our dugongs, our magpie geese. That's the biggest issue at the moment is protecting what's ours, belongs to us. We call it Cullen Point, but in language we call it Ripana. And because this point is so special to us because of our story, the Barramundi, we call it Thradalakawakawana.
What they're taking out, they ain't going to put it back. Because them think they take about 30 years before they start laying eggs.
Fishing, if that's managed well, yes, because it is. I think there's room to move for everybody, but it's just got to be managed.
When I arrived here, they were like, welcome home, and glad you've come back to country.
Conserve it for future generations.
Once the people start to come back, build up the community, then might make a little township out of it.
Have more houses here, have facility for children, get our daycares, get Mapoon to grow, so we're not losing our families moving out of here, especially the young ones.
Most of all, we want the country looked after, If you're going to do any damage to country or river, water, we don't want it because if the river goes, we go, So when Loch is dead, Mapoon is dead.
What price do we pay? All our waters and what feeds off that Wenlock is just gonna go. What then? Then we won't have this beauty anymore.
You can go fishing, everything's here. It's bountiful, I can say. You've got your food here. You cannot starve here.
Only thing I like to say is the young people, if they could just keep it going and, look after Mapoon the right way.
Look, there's a good crew here that's going to build this place up to what everyone expects it to be.
The way we're going, it'll be good. And I think we'll end up with everything. If we get all the clan groups working together, you got all your directors, we could get directors and proper people sit on the board and work things out for our clan groups and for our places around here at Mapoon. We could work it together, with everyone.